Fairy Tail isn't what you think it is. There are a lot of assumptions people make about the series that range from absolutely true to completely false. I know because I made those assumptions myself. This video is important to me because the single most common comment I've gotten on my channel is Fairy Tail sucks. And I always respond to it the same way, by asking, how far did you get? Look, I get it. Fairy Tail has plenty of flaws and it's not for everyone. I'm the first to admit it, but I also used to say Fairy Tail sucks without having seen it. I was blindly relying on the words of others. When I did finally watch it, despite everything I'd been told, I fell in love, and by the end of this video, I truly hope that you may view it in a different light. If you're like I was as a Fairy Tail hater, I understand. That's why I'd like to give you an honest look at what makes Fairy Tail great to me, and hopefully it'll resonate with a few of you, because I think so many people have Fairy Tail all wrong. I'm going to start by highlighting what I believe is the greatest strength the series has, and later on touch on some of the biggest criticisms of the series as well as their validity. The single greatest component of Fairy Tail is the emotion it brings. Some of the most beautiful moments in the genre come from this show. Hell, it was the first shonen to make me shed tears on numerous occasions. In fact, Fairy Tail has a moment that has made me tear up more than any other scene I've ever seen in anime. I've rewatched it hundreds of times. What they do with the Loxus character, who I'll talk about more in an upcoming video, is remarkable, and what they do with him in Fantasia is one of my favorite scenes in the history of anime. That was vague because I'm going to try to straddle the line between giving specific examples but not spoiling things for people who haven't given this series a shot. If you're a fan already, you'll know what I'm talking about. That does make this next example particularly difficult. Let's just say that there is a moment with this girl that every time I watch it, like with Fantasia, I tear up 100% of the time. This is in no small part due to some of the best music in anime. Not only is it extremely emotional when it needs to be, but incredibly adventurous as well, and the Gaelic vibe it gives off really sets it apart. Before I get to another strength of the series, I have a few more moments I'd like to focus on that really hit me at my core. A man gets arrested, and how certain people react both in the moment and after it are images ingrained in my mind. When everyone is gone, who's left to save the day, and what does it cost you to do so? Let's just say it's a lot. What if you aren't as strong as you think you are? How does it impact you to know how wide the gap between you and others is? These are all deeply personal moments that are exceedingly well written and make you care so much about these people. Something else that deserves to be mentioned before I address some criticisms is the Grand Magic Games is one of the best tournament arcs ever. We have the Fairy Tail Guild that has been out of commission for a while now entering this tournament for the first time, and they're despised. Teams are screwing them over, others are targeting them, and there's a whole other plot going on behind the scenes. Everything that could possibly be going against them is. Of course, it's Natsu at the center of turning everything around. Not by winning an epic fight, but by scratching and clawing to get some early points in the tournament and explaining why he's putting everything he has into it. You really feel how much he cares, and it flips the crowd over completely, which is absolutely realistic. There are so many amazing moments in this arc, and I'm going to name a few more I love, but to put in perspective how many there are, I was watching Fairy Tail one night when I was sick. But because each episode after that was so good, I didn't end up actually going to sleep until almost 6 a.m. That's how cool this arc was. Kana and Fairy Glitter, Loxus against Raventail, the Battle of the Twin Dragons, Urza in Pandemonium. This gem of a moment. Like I said, the Grand Magic Games were amazing. But why does it work so well? Because Dr. Urza, that's why. No, really, the reason you get hyped or feel emotional is because the show truly invests you in the characters. Are all of these people insane? Absolutely. They are Murphy's Law incarnate. But over time, you grow to love each and every one of them. The best way I can describe it is these are the friends you're at your silliest and dumbest with, but also your most authentic self and the people you'd do anything for. That's the Fairy Tail Guild. Before I started watching, I hated everything about Natsu, and it took a few arcs for me to get over my preconceived notions, but before the first season was done, I ended up realizing, yeah, this guy's an idiot, but he's not annoying like I thought he'd be, and I admire the hell out of him. He may choose to solve his problems with his fists, but when you need him, he's always there, no matter what. A perfect example is back during those Grand Magic Games. He has no reason to care about Yukino's problems with her guild, and going in guns blazing is an insane thing to do. But it's awesome because he always stays true to himself and does what he thinks is best. I've found that the people who hate Natsu, kind of like Luffy, are the ones who haven't spent much time watching them. Perhaps more importantly, it's not the Natsu show either. So many characters matter and chip in. There's a reason Urza is one of the most popular female characters in shonen. She's equal parts simple and complex, quirky and serious, badass and beautiful, and I go a lot more in depth here. Lucy Heartfilia is probably the most underrated main character in shonen, and someone who is far more than her reputation as a bimbo portrays her as. You'll see a video soon about how she has some of the best character growth I've ever seen, even if she does lose her clothes like she's on OnlyFans. Honestly, Fairy Tail has one of the greatest casts ever. There are dozens of memorable characters. Gray, Juvia, Wendy, and Gajiel are all outstanding side characters that I'm only cutting short on because I'm sure I'm going to do videos on them in the future. Gray especially has a lot of interesting trauma to deal with regarding parental figures in his life. Gajiel has one of my favorite redemptions and romances. Off the top of my head, and not counting the 7 I just named, Makarov, Zareth, Ultir, Lizana, Mira, Loxus, Elfman, Mavis, and Zera all have moments that either made me tear up or brought me really damn close. Again, that's off the top of my head and probably only half of the full list. Zareth is one of my personal favorite villains in anime. Here's a video I made on him. Basically, he's a big bad who isn't at all what you'd expect him to be, with some of the coolest writing of a villain I've ever seen. But this is anime and, more importantly, shonen. What about the hype? Don't worry, there's plenty. The debut of Acnologia is one of the best villain moments in anime. They could have handled some other parts better, but his introduction was legitimately flawless and made him a god-tier threat. Mystigan vs. Loxus, the arrival of Guildarts, Fairy Law, the Celestial Spirit King, the entire tournament, the Phantom Lord invasion, the fight with Hades. I could go on and on. It's not a series lacking in that regard. How is the action? I'd say generally solid to good. There are some great fights and some not so great ones. There's no Tengen level fight here, and it's not on the upper echelon of anime fights by any means, and that's fine. That's not really what they're going for. It's more about the reason behind the fight than the fight itself. Let's get to the critiques, starting with perhaps the biggest one. It's all about the power of friendship. I won't refute this argument because there is validity to it. It's a major element of the series, but I will point out that the strength of the friendships and bonds create a lot of the best moments the show has. If you go through the series, there aren't nearly as many friendship power-ups as you'd think for it being such a big complaint, and I'd argue it's only an issue with 2 characters. For me, saying Fairy Tail has some of the most heart of any shonen is a better way of putting it than saying it's all about friendship hacks. One critique that's baffled me is that the show is poorly written. A lot of critiques have truth to them. I just covered one. The writing though, I don't buy it. It may not be a masterpiece of literature, but I don't know how anyone could watch the growth and depth of the characters, the long-term storytelling, the connectivity within the series, the heartbreak, or the world building and say Fairy Tail is poorly written. Inconsistent? Sure. Bad? I don't see it. Of course it has flaws. What shows spanning over 300 episodes wouldn't? The stakes have definitely been one I've been critical of in the past. If you know, you know. Some arcs drag on far too much for my liking. One arc in particular tried to do way too much and felt disjointed, but overall the good far outweighs the bad. Remember when I said I ask people how far they got in the series? There's a reason for that, and it's twofold. First, to gauge if they've even started. Remember, this isn't an insult. I did this exact thing too before I watched it. Second, to see if they've gotten to the good stuff. I have no issue admitting it does start a bit slow. But so does One Piece, and that's many people's GOAT. To properly prepare you, I think it took about 12 episodes to win me over, and I'd say it worked earlier for me than most. Generally, I'd say the early 20s is when it would really start picking up. When you hit the 90s, it goes up another level. There's a stretch of 3 straight major arcs, which is over 100 episodes, where the show is amazing, and that's while covering all sorts of material it hadn't touched on before. Sacred Islands, a tournament with a twist, and by far the darkest arc in the series are all back to back to back. the last of which breaks down the characters and guild in a way completely unlike everything preceding it. There's one arc where we completely dip out on the main cast altogether, simply to explore the past, and not only does it add history to the world, but adds even more characters you can't help but care for. Hell, there's a lead whose origin isn't really explained for hundreds of episodes, and when it is, it's still incredible. As far as complaints go, too much fan service is a big one, and there is also validity to this. Fairy Tail is heavy on it, there is no denying that. To their defense, they do go both ways with that more than any other anime I've seen. I mean, Gray's gimmick is he literally can't stop stripping, even in the snow. The more important part is the characters are not reduced to only being fan service. Lucy might lose her clothes, kick someone's ass, and make you cry, all in the same episode. Urza may wear skimpy outfits, but you'll still be blown away by the depth of her character, and how deeply her trauma has affected her. That's the truth of the matter. The women in Fairy Tail are so much better than most other big shonen, and honestly, it's not even close. But if you're super turned off by hot, big-breasted anime chicks being exactly that, then yeah, I suppose this may not be for you. If you like lovable characters, moments that'll make you laugh, ones that'll make you cry, others that'll get you hyped, along with amazing music and maybe a titty or 50, then Fairy Tail is for you. And if not, so be it, at least I tried. With that, I'm out.